former Trump prosecutor Jack Smith is now facing a formal push from Republicans for criminal charges against him. The GOP House Judiciary Chair has referred Smith to the Justice Department, accusing him of misleading the committee during closed-door testimony last year. The DOJ says it has received the referral and will, quote, investigate all evidence of criminal conduct. Now, this all has to do with testimony Smith gave about phone records he collected from members of Congress surrounding efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Smith insisted those records did not include the content of the messages. But Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan now claims new evidence shows that wasn't true. Smith's attorneys are slamming the referral, saying it, quote, reflects a chilling eagerness to weaponize the justice system by attacking a career, nonpartisan public servant who faithfully and fearlessly performed his duties by following the facts and the law. Kate?
Joining us right now is CNN senior legal analyst and former federal prosecutor Elie Honig to talk more about this. So, Elie, you have been critical of some of Jack Smith's tactics over the years. We've talked about this many times. But what do you think of what's going on here now? I mean, do you see a potential crime?
Kate, I do not think there is a valid, provable federal crime here against Jack Smith, and here's why. The core of the allegation that Jim Jordan is making is that Jack Smith testified back in December that he had not seen the substance of text messages involving members of Congress, but it later turned out he had seen text messages. Now, on its face, that sounds fairly compelling. However, the problem is there are two different sets of documents that Jack Smith testified about. The first one that he's being questioned about, there are documents that Jack Smith obtained phone records of certain members of Congress. And as Jack Smith testified here, you can see all that he saw is the record of what phone number called what phone number on what date and for how long. And when he was asked here by Senator Grassley, did you see the substance of text messages in those phone records? He said no, because the substance of text messages was not in that set of records. Now, there's a separate set of records, which he's not being asked about here, where he did get the substance of text messages. Those came from the National Archives. So maybe he could have said in that first answer, well, I didn't see the text messages in that first set of documents. I did, however, see them elsewhere. But if you look at what he's specifically being asked, it's only about that first set of records. And it's not false for him to say there that he had not seen the substance of the text messages.
Add to all of this really quickly, the president just weighed in on social media about this development, this letter from Jim Jordan. And in it, and with it, as he sent it out, wrote "Justice at last" with some question marks, as you see right here. How could this play into any case now if this moved forward?
Well, if there comes a day where Jack Smith does get indicted, he surely will make a motion to dismiss based on vindictive prosecution. He will argue this prosecution is the result of a long-standing anger or beef that the president has with me. I was therefore singled out for prosecution because of political reasons, because there's a vendetta going on here. And if he makes that argument, which he surely will if he gets prosecuted, this will be an exhibit to make that argument. He'll say, look, the president is openly pushing for this. There's a long-standing history between us, and that will bolster a vindictive prosecution defense should Jack Smith ever get charged.
Right, should. Jim Jordan's letter accuses Smith of telling half-truths. Can you bring a perjury case on half-truths?
See, that's exactly the point. You cannot make a perjury case based on half-truths. In order to make a perjury case, you have to show a specific, clear question and a specific, clear, intentional false answer. Somebody could look at Jack Smith's testimony and say, okay, he wasn't being forthcoming. When Grassley asked him, had you seen the text messages in this one batch of records, the really fully honest answer from Jack Smith would have been, no, I didn't see text messages in that one batch, but I did see them elsewhere. But that's not required. You don't have to give information beyond what you're asked. So if there was a critique of Jack Smith that he wasn't fully forthcoming, that's valid. But that's different from saying he committed a criminal act of felony perjury.
The lawyers for Jack Smith, they have denied the allegation, citing the New York Times, quote, during his testimony, Mr. Smith provided truthful, responsive answers and candidly discussed his work. This referral reflects a chilling eagerness to weaponize the justice system by attacking a career, nonpartisan public servant who faithfully and fearlessly performed his duties by following the facts and the law. Joining me now, former Assistant U.S. Attorney Mike Gordon, who prosecuted cases against January 6th defendants. Mike, good to see you. I want to read for you what the top Democrat on the committee, that's Jamie Raskin, what he says tonight. Listen, he says, this referral, if ever brought before a judge, will get laughed out of court. But success on the merits is not the goal. It is meant to harass Jack Smith. It is meant to please their Fox News viewership. Do you see, Mike, any merit to what's being alleged in this referral?
Thanks, Laura. No, I absolutely do not. So a few points here. First thing is that a criminal referral is practically meaningless. It doesn't make DOJ do anything, and they don't need one to prosecute anybody. But what's being alleged here is perjury. Perjury has 4 elements. You got to have a false statement that's material, okay, that was made under oath with the deliberate intent to willfully mislead. All right. This is going to fail on element 1. It's not a false statement. He was asked, Jack Smith, he was asked, did the toll records you received contain the contents of text messages?
Toll records
said,
being telephone
no.
records you get from the company. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So toll records just tell you who made a call, who they called, how long the call lasted, and the date and time. There's no contents in them. So when Jack Smith was asked, did the toll records contain contents? And he said no, that was a true statement. It'd be true for every prosecutor in every case ever on every request for toll records ever made. That's why Jamie Raskin correctly says we get laughed out of court. If the Congress people wanted to know if he had their contents of their text messages, they should have asked him that. But that wasn't the question. Jack Smith's answer was true.
The remaining elements, of course, the materiality of it, they're going to argue that it's so material given the substantive nature of the testimony he was given. They're going to say that he deliberately tried to mislead as another element of perjury. How do you think he will fare if that were ever go to court on these grounds, given that he was called to testify and gave an explanation?
Yeah, well, he was under oath, so they're going to satisfy that. All right, it is material, sure. But the 4th element, did he deliberately make a willful false statement? Did he know it was false when he made it? The answer to that's going to be no, too. They're going to fail in that element also. Because just as I said before, Jack Smith knows, as I do, as every prosecutor does, that toll records don't contain contents. So he answered that question correctly. What they're upset about is that he didn't volunteer additional information that they didn't ask about.
As you know full well, and what Raskin has said, he believes that this is all about harassment. There cannot be a shock to anyone that there are even calls to prosecute Jack Smith. Frankly, this has been mounting, at least in rhetoric, for quite some time. The president himself has repeatedly called on Smith to be prosecuted. We've been covering how prosecutors were under immense pressure to pursue charges against Trump's political opponents, or perceived ones, like Letitia James or James Comey, just to name a few. Listen to what Jack Smith told Congress back in January.
And Mr. Smith, do you believe that President Trump's Department of Justice will find some way to indict you?
I believe that they will do everything in their power to do that because they've been ordered to by the president.
He has all but predicted at least a criminal referral. The prosecution, as you say, is an additional leap. Do you think that given the criminal referral and who wants to lead the DOJ, that the DOJ will take up a case against Smith and try to pursue it?
Unfortunately, if I had to predict, I'd say yes. This is the same administration that's prosecuting the Seychelles case against James Comey, the so-called defacing case against Mr. Hearn for the reflecting pool. They prosecuted the sandwich thrower. They've lost grand jury indictment after grand jury indictment, something that I've never seen happen,
Me either.
in my career. So the idea that they might pursue a meritless case against a public figure for retribution, if you'd asked me that a few years ago, I would have said that would never happen in the Department of Justice. Now, I expect it.